have so many guests here, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone to the Hadley Historical Commission meeting. I'm Diana West, I'm chairperson of the commission, and I'm going to do roll call attendance. I'm just going to go across my screen. Courtney Meyer.
Here.
Dragon.
Here.
Irene.
Here.
Mary.
Here.
And it looks like Sherry is joining us right now. I'll give her a minute to connect to audio. I'd also like to welcome our guests. If you could just tell us your name and then where you're from, I'll call on you across my screen. So first we have Daniel Naylor.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a designer and project manager at Dietz & Company based in Springfield, Massachusetts.
All right, welcome. And we have Chris Skelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Skelly. I'm a consultant. I do community-wide historic preservation planning. And I have my consulting firm's called Skelly Preservation Services.
Thank you. Lauren Wilcox.
Hi, I'm Lauren Wilcox. I am the HR director and project coordinator for the town of Hadley.
Great, thank you. Kevin Riordan.
Hi, I'm Kevin, principal at Dietz & Company Architects. I'm just overseeing the project.
All right, welcome. Looks like Scott McCarthy's here from DPW, and then we've got Jennifer Sanders James from Town Hall. All right, thanks everybody. We'll get right to it. First thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our October 15th, 2024 meeting. It looks like we have Josh Olson joining us as well. And
it's me.
Oh, hi, Brianna. Welcome. And just for reference, Brianna Quinn is here and Sharon Parsons is here from the commission as well. So every commission member is in attendance. So do I have a motion to approve the October 15th, 2024 minutes?
Motion.
Thank you, Dragon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Irene. Are there any additions or corrections?
No.
All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote again. Courtney?
Yes.
Dragon?
Yes.
Irene?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Brianna?
Yes.
And I, Diana West, vote yes. All right, next up on the agenda are our friends here from Dietz & Company to talk about the schematic design study for the exterior repairs to the town hall.
And with that, I'm going to take over screen sharing, if that's okay.
That should work.
I'm going to share, hopefully I share the correct screen first. I'm going to share now. Can everybody see my cover sheet here?
Yes.
Great. So as I said, I'm Daniel Naylor. I'm from Dietz & Company. I'm a designer and project manager. I'm going to be leading the schematic design study for the town hall repair study. And we wanted to gain input from the Historical Commission as well as representatives from the town of Hadley at the town hall now. So we'll get started. Okay. So in simplest terms, the study includes studying whether we are to repair or replace existing wood siding, repair or replace existing wood windows, or replace them with aluminum clad wood windows, and then additionally, we are studying whether we are going to replace an existing concrete ramp deemed not accessible, as well as an entry stair that's not accessible with in-kind accessible ramp and stair. Okay, we'll start with a building conditions history. So in researching the building, we found that there has been plenty of renovations, exterior work. Some of it is hard to determine when and where it was when it was replaced or installed. We do know that in 1841, this town hall was constructed as a single floor open hall with a stage at the rear and a balcony, more akin to the meeting house type that you would see around the Revolution. But in 1902, well, sorry, that 1841 construction included on the exterior a single rank of double height windows. That's very apparent at this image at the front here. You can see a large ceremonious door and windows that go double height to the similar proportion of the door. In 1902, I guess government was different where they needed to renovate and add a second floor. Those single double height windows were replaced with a double rank sequence, and office space was added on the first and second floors. The double rank sequence of windows were a 8x8 double hung window. You can see that here in the panels, the glass panels. And the south entry canopy, which is where that ramp terminates, was most likely installed at the same time where that stage was most likely removed. Again, in 1968, the interior was renovated with new offices at the second floor. Those windows were starting to show their age and wear, so the bottom window sashes were replaced at the second floor, and the storm windows were added. The exterior siding and trim was most likely repaired and painted, and the exterior walls were insulated.
Give me that. Bring it here.
The new louvers, there was new louvers installed at the building's east and west pediments. The pediment is that large triangular object above the cornice or frieze. Can you guys see my cursor or?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, there was a louver installed here and at the rear. Most likely at that time, the exterior window finish was changed from a dark color. You can see a dark color in the original photographs. But showing today and was most likely painted around that time as that white color that you see today. There was a rear storage room that was in the rear of at the back of the building. That was most likely demolished sometime after 1968. That's where the ramp is sitting now. And a modern siding profile, that clapboard that you see that goes around the building, was either removed and repaired and replaced or just replaced in kind. The type of fasteners indicate that that's a more modern installation. This is more just a summary of those changes and descriptions. There's those wood louvers. Interestingly enough, at the front elevation, the pediment is of a shiplap. That's in contrast to the rear one that is actually a clapboard. So they are different. In 1902, these 8x8 double hung windows were of a dark color. In 1968, we learned that these were repaired and the bottom sashes outlined in red were replaced, and then the whole window was painted white. The Doric columns look like they're recently repainted in 2024. And then again, in similar to the pediment here at the front elevation, the front elevation of the exterior wall is also of a shiplap. And that all sits on the original 1888 stone foundation. Again,
Part of that was my mistake, 1841. I put the wrong date.
go again, Kevin, sorry, I didn't hear you.
1841. Sorry, I put the wrong date there.
Oh, 18, yeah, correct, 1841, sorry. Okay. On on the south elevation and similarly on the north one, there is a commanding archetype of these shiplap pilasters that were original to the building. It is a vertical shiplap cut lumber install that is original to the 1880, now I'm confused myself, 18,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it may have been replaced in 1902. It was repainted and probably subsequently repainted 1968 and after. Again, the windows, the bottom sashes were replaced at the second level, most likely due to the intake of water. And then again, those were painted uniformly white. At the rear, we have the pediment that is a different finish. It is a clapboard, which it is shown as clapboard in the historical photos I'll show in a couple of minutes, but that is different from the front elevation where it's shiplap. And I have photos of both these that I'll be showing you. Distinct to the rear elevation, and I think probably due to the balcony, the stage, there was a window that went all the way up to the pediment, but was infilled in 1968 to continue a uniform frieze around the full perimeter of the building. Like the other windows, the bottom sash was replaced. The ramp was then installed in the 1990s. And everything else, I think we're covered there. So existing conditions. As you can see at this front elevation here on the photo, that's the shiplap that you can see on the pediment. It's flat. There's no really, there's no overlap. It's completely flush, as is it's similar at the front elevation under the portico. The siding could possibly be original, but it was most likely replaced or repaired and reinstalled. All over the building, it is showing signs of moisture staining, paint peeling and delamination, and general deterioration due to moisture, mildew, insects, and that especially worsens where the building is conditioned. Where it's insulated, there's more potential for condensation, and that speeds up the deterioration of the exterior. However, the frieze and the pediments and the ceiling are mostly in uninsulated spaces that are not occupied, and therefore the temperature is more regulated outside and in, and then the quality is a little more, it's in generally good condition. So here are some specific photos. In this photo on the far left, you can see the condition of the newly painted Doric columns and capitals. However, in the conditioned spaces, you can also see the deteriorating materials as described before, the painting and the lamination and the mildew. There is some parts of the frieze where it is conditioned, especially in the plenum space where there is equipment and it's also insulated there. And you can start to see that deterioration as well, but generally it's in fair condition. It's a different story at the siding, and basically full perimeter, we're seeing signs of mildew and paint peel and rot. At the underside of the portico in this third photo, we show a similar shiplap material in good quality. It is dirty. It could use power washing, but it does look in pretty good condition. Photo 4 shows the opposite end pediment and louver. You can see that is a different exterior finish that has the clapboard. This is a photo of a typical window sash and sill. this one's missing a storm window at the front elevation. That might have been on purpose due to a previous recommendation from the historical commission or the town. A majority of them do have storm windows on the outside, but they all do share this deep sill that's rather flat as well, and that is susceptible to collecting moisture and grime, and you can start to see the rot here and the poor condition of the sill. Photo 2 down here is a close-up of the clapboard and substrate. And what is important in this photo is that it shows a lack of a moisture barrier behind the exterior cladding. And then it shows the blown fiberglass insulation behind that. Because there is no moisture barrier, and because this is a uneven substrate here, it's tough to install a water vapor barrier on there, and that will inform some of the recommendations that we have further in this presentation. Photo 3 here is of that pilaster, which is a important archetype of the building. It's but it is a superficial one. At the same time, it is hollow, and it is showing signs of, well, the wood substrate runs directly behind that, and it does not have any waterproofing as well. And it looks as if through general building maintenance, like you can see some Cat 5 cables, that some of this exterior sheathing here has actually, some of the insulation has leaked past the exterior sheathing. So and then in photo 4 here, we have a close-up of the mildew and clapboard and paint delamination. We're going to move on. So what we would recommend is replacing that with a either wood or composite material. Wood siding would have a lower upfront cost, and it's the most historically accurate wood. It's the most historically accurate wood representation of what you have now. It does require more frequent maintenance and refinishing, and is more labor intensive. It also is more susceptible to the environmental conditions and insects. Option 2 would be a composite material. These usually have a higher initial cost, but a lower maintenance and life cycle cost. At this point in time, this imitate wood materials generally rather accurately, and it is far less susceptible to the environmental conditions described in wood siding. It does have a higher upfront and installation cost, and it may have a noticeable different appearance than true wood siding. It's not random like a wood grain would be. Regardless of if we were to install wood or composite, we would like to replace the exterior sheathing and then install a rain screen system. And what that does is we would be creating an airspace behind the cladding where water could weep out from behind, and also air could circulate up and down, keeping the substrate of the exterior wall dry. In regards to the frieze, the archetype here is that the frieze and the pediment are proud of the exterior cladding. That is a intentional thing of the Greek Revival aesthetic that was designed. Adding that rain screen would add thickness, and I think we have a substantial dimension here where we could still add that and keep the historical character of the what was initially designed.
You're talking about the rain screen, right? We can add
Yes.
the rain screen and still
Yes, we
maintain
would add the
maybe
rain screen
something
at the exterior cladding here. The pilaster and the frieze are proud, and the rain screen would be at the clapboard or shiplap. It would add thickness, but it would not become. We would try to design. We would have to design to not become aligned with this to keep the historical character of what was designed initially. As we said before, the pilaster's frieze and pediment above the conditioned space is in rather good condition, and it would be acceptable to scrape and paint a majority of this and keep it as the materials are now. There is certain dimension of occupied area where we would um, put a moisture barrier and then replace and paint. Another option is to, if we were to choose to replace composite siding at overall, you could, with the trim pieces available today, recreate pretty accurately the same conditions that are present today. Moving on to windows, the first option would be to restore the existing wood windows, and that would maintain the original appearance that we have today with those 8x8 double hungs. However, that is a labor-intensive and quite expensive project. It is more susceptible to the environmental conditions that are affecting them today. Just like the wood siding, there would be higher maintenance costs. You would have to continue to use storm sashes, whether they are on the exterior or in the interior. And the operability of those windows would be difficult with those sashes and the weather stripping involved to keep those energy efficient. A second option would be to replace them with a wood window with aluminum cladding at the exterior. Over the lifespan of the window, it's a lower cost. They provide much better thermal control. They are far less maintenance on the exterior because of the cladding. And because of their weather tightness, you have lower building operational costs. Some considerations are that they may, if you were to take a standard aluminum clad window offered by a leading brand today, it would be, you may have a slightly different appearance than what's in there now without going to fully customized ones. And the Muntin grills would have a noticeable profile difference than what's there right now. This is sort of an example of those profiles. This is what you see generally in households now, but you do have the option to clad the wood on the inside and the aluminum on the outside in certain ways. Those are the solutions that we're exploring for the components, the building components of the town hall. Another part of the study was to replace the ramp and stair in kind, but also explore the possibilities of adding an at-grade elevator tower and an at-grade entrance with an elevator tower that would bring you to all floors, and then a stair proud of the building on the outside. So this option one is the replace in kind ramp and stair. Option two would be to place a stair tower at the rear elevation of the building with a stair up to level one. And then option three would be to do something similar at the south elevation where the existing canopy and stair entrance is today. And that is, those are the three options that we are exploring. There is the opportunity to put the elevator hoistway in the interior of the building on the other side of the foundation wall, as well as the stair, but that would take a lot of structural engineering, the possibility of a lot of structural engineering, and would be rather costly. So these are what we are exploring and would like to share with the town for feedback. But all in all, our recommendations right now are to remove the existing siding at the exterior wall and replace with a composite siding ring string system, which would be installed on new plywood sheathing with a full perimeter moisture barrier. Also, we would replace the wood shiplap pilasters below the frieze with new composite siding. And we would have that new sheathing run right behind them and have a new moisture barrier. The frieze and pediment could be replaced with those materials, but the condition today, they could also be primed, painted, scrape primed and painted. There is areas where it could be valuable to install a moisture barrier and sheathing, as we stated, with the part of the frieze that is in a conditioned space. But overall, the condition is okay to paint and to just paint. And then we would recommend, I think, removing the existing windows and replacing with new fully flashed 8x8 aluminum clad double hung windows. Whether that is that original dark color or the white color that you have now, that would be something that we'd be looking for feedback on. And that concludes the presentation. We'd like to open up for comments and questions.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Dragon did put in the chat questions about parking and traffic flow with the designs for the elevator.
Yes, we would, in regards, it would eat up, well, let me get back to the, sorry, let me get back to the,
Yeah, the intention is to not, I guess, cut into any of the parking areas. If we did either one of those, we would try to stay within the footprint of the ramp or the entrance as it is now. I think if it's on the south side of the building, and we're kind of putting these ideas forward just to get your impressions of the location of these. We still have to work out the details of the towers, but whether you think it's going to be I guess more historically obtrusive to be on the east side versus the south side of the building. I wouldn't say these are not like final images, even though they're kind of like very crisp and finished looking.
yeah, these are definitely just massings. The dimensions are, the hoistway is the average hoist size of what would be installed, and the stair is at the minimum per code or at a accurate per code width. And then we're trying to stay within the confines of the grass median and ramp here. And at the same time, trying to kind of sit on the footprint of what you have here at the canopy, while designing for this way as well. This one would affect parking. There would be affected parking on this elevation here, but these
we're
were
getting into too much detail because we're
Yeah.
just looking at like location on the building. So to get into like, I guess the intention will be to not affect parking with anything that we're proposing.
Can we see option 1 and 3 again? Thank you.
Yep.
So with this option, you would be putting an elevator inside to access the second floor?
Option 1 would be replacing in kind what you have now.
Okay.
With added accessibility.
Yeah, as Daniel was saying there, we did look at another option where we tried to put the elevator on the inside of the building, and there's a pretty big programmatic impact to doing that, and between dealing with foundation issues that exist in the building and also cutting into other program areas, and would be taking away from space that is used for, we're already kind of like crowded in the building. So take away any space would be difficult.
And can you just show us option 3 again, please?
Sure thing.
Well, I have my opinion, but what do other historical commission members think?
I just knowing the parking and the flow of traffic in Town Hall, and then also with nearby First Church and also the Farm Museum, I just see option 3 as being challenging, trying to navigate cars through that way. Even though I do agree that it's the south side of the building. So in terms of when they were looking at the design and everything, that might have been in consideration. But there's, in terms of like logistically thinking about moving a vehicle through that very narrow space and navigating traffic, that might be challenging.
Yeah, it was
Fair enough.
some consideration of the visibility from Route 9.
Is
Whether
there,
that's an important issue is, I guess, your call.
is there an elevator in the building now?
There is a wheelchair lift in the building and the interior of the building.
But it's not really, it's not designed to do a lot of traffic. It's very, very cumbersome. I will say I tried to use it once when Board of Health was still on the second floor. When I forget if it was Megan was an infant and with our stroller, and it's not ideal. So I think the goal is to really upgrade it to something that's more state of the art and usable and accessible.
I actually prefer the second image. Either 2 or 3, you're losing parking spaces. With 3, you're losing the parking spaces that are diagonals on the side of the building. All of them, really, because the entrance to the elevator is going to be where people are walking, and they won't be able to park. Nobody will be able to park along that side of the building with the way the entrance is. It's hard to tell how much this is jutting out over the handicap ramp at this point in time. You said it was pretty much the same footprint as the handicap ramp?
Generally, there would be, as the design would be progressed, and we start installing actual building systems, if we were to continue past the study, it's taken up all of the handicap footprint and potentially at least a couple of feet into the asphalt.
That eliminates at least 3, if not 4 parking spaces there.
I think without, further engineering and looking at this, I guess more comprehensively, I wouldn't say that we couldn't pull it closer to the building. It's just we're trying to get an idea of like where you think it's best located. I think that we can shrink it down so that the footprint does fit within the ramp width.
The other question I have is the footprint within the town hall's property, because the church actually owns the parking lot.
The parking lot is shared between the church and the town hall.
It's shared, but the actual possession of it is with the church, I believe. Right?
I think we need to double check that, because when we did the repaving of it, it was a shared expense between the two of us. So I think we would definitely check in on that.
I was under the impression that it was shared because town hall uses our parking lot. So they share they take the plowing expenses, and they shared the paving because town hall is using our parking lot.
We
Sherry,
can double check on that,
I
Sheriff.
understand it to be the town hall owns the spots behind it. The church owns the spots next to it, and the farm museum owns the spots in front of the farm museum.
No, the farm museum doesn't own any spots.
All right. That's neither here nor there in this
We can
discussion.
figure that out as it gets bigger.
In terms of look of the building and from a historical perspective, I would vote option 2. You can't see it from the front. You can see it from Route 9. I don't really care about that. I think I care more about the aesthetics, looking at it from Middle Street.
Me too.
I know Kevin doesn't want us to get into the engineering of it, but on the side of the building, it's a pretty steep grade right there. So that is also an additional cost that would need to be addressed to be able to make it ADA compliant. So just something else to consider if you're also considering costs, which a lot of things in this presentation noted.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if I can speak, I as well kind of echo what Diana's saying. I really like the option 2 because the front of the building isn't obstructed or altered, that we can really get that great front view of our historical building that way. But really great work, everybody. I mean, this is a tough thing to look into. I know a couple years ago, I was looking into ADA accessibility with the ramp and getting a button done. So the idea of us finally having an elevator possible for accessibility for this building many years later is just really brings it full circle to me. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for sharing.
I do have a question, it may not be answerable by this group, but I am curious about the roof and how comfortable anybody feels if after doing this work that there won't be problems with the roof if it's not included in the scope, or was it a project recently that people feel comfortable in the town hall that it won't pose a problem, because you did mention a lot of moisture leakage. And can that be attributed to the shiplap and the siding and the windows?
I will say that we have a building maintenance supervisor and a DPW director, and I feel comfortable with the roof. But the roof is not part of the scope.
I know.
So it's not something that we can take up with this.
The roof was replaced. It's a standing seam metal roof, so that's in really good shape. There's really no issue with the roof.
Okay.
Any more comments on the elevator?
I'm just wondering about this option 2. Is it showing that it's covering a back window at the top of the building?
It is. There
Okay.
is a center window there on the top sequence, and it's covering one at the bottom as well. It's covering one at the bottom as well. The two center windows between those two pilasters will be forfeited.
Do they become the doors?
Up in the pediment area, because there is that vent up there that we would likely be covering up as well.
I'm just thinking of that top window from a historical point of view, whether that would matter.
Are you talking about the one here?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that would be most likely sacrificed if we were to build a tower there.
But that was installed in 1968, so
yeah,
relative to the age of the building, it's, I guess, questionably historic.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I do think losing the pilasters on the side toward the church would be worse than losing the window, to be honest, because the pilasters have always been a part of the building.
Good point, yeah.
All right, did you want comments on the materials as well?
Certainly, yeah. Would love to hear your opinions and comments and questions.
I do have one clarification question.
Sure.
So the windows that are in the building now, we think some of them date to 1902, but then others date to the 1960s.
To clarify, the information that we have gathered so far, those sequences of windows were installed as 8x8 double hungs in 1902. And on the second floor, the bottom sashes, the part that moves up and down to open, were replaced in 1968 as part of that renovation. The bottom first floor windows are most likely 1902 from 1902. We have drawings from 1968 where those are only directed to be painted.
Okay.
Will the project include insulating again? Re-insulation of the inside?
So the study was in the scope of the study was to investigate replacing the exterior components. The insulation, I think that would be a further discussion if we were to take the project past schematic design. Kevin, would you agree with that?
Yeah, the insulation was blown in 1968. I think that's the insulation that's in the wall right now.
Yes.
We would be leaving the plank sheathing on the building and overlaying that with a plywood and then the moisture barrier. And in the sense that, you know, we wouldn't be adding insulation, we would be doing a lot to the exterior wall to protect the not only protect the wood condition that's there now and using the rain screen to make the siding a better installation, but we'd also be like creating an air barrier on the inside, you know, from the inside out of the building, and, you know, keeping a lot of air that probably is currently just whispering through the whole building from escaping. We'd still have the attic, you know, that would still be an issue, but I think regarding the exterior walls, we'd have a much better exterior envelope condition.
Do historical commission members have thoughts on the siding and the windows? And I guess the pilasters, is that what those are called?
When you say composite siding, what kind of composite siding are you talking about?
So composites are usually made out of like a bunch of fiberglass components, fibers from recycled wood, and then it's kind of resin together to create a plank. They come either pre-finished in some brands, come pre-finished with a color. They come in smooth. They come in wood grain, as well as they come in a shiplap or a clapboard. So it's pretty in terms of styling, it's pretty equitable to wood. It's just a more engineered solution. It's to kind of take some of the labor out of it. Some of the brands you might be familiar with are Boral or Hardy Plank. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry, you.
It did. What about cement board?
Could be another. That's also another option there. I think in terms of
that is the Boral that
yeah
Daniel was talking about. That's the cement board, and I think Chris Scott McCarthy said that you have used it in town already on other buildings.
Mm.
So I dropped off a box of materials at the town hall this morning, and Jennifer has them in her office, and you're welcome to kind of poke through the box to see the different materials and different finishes that can come with those materials.
Yes, the cementitious one, the Boral, is an unfinished fiberboard, a cementitious fiberboard. That's the one that you'll see that has no paint applied to it. And then the clapboard one is a Hardy Plank. That one has a finish applied to it from a manufacturer.
I like the composite siding.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I like the composite siding. We have hardy board on our house, and it's really hardy. You know, we have one side of our house still has like the original aluminum, and it's got like dents and stuff in it. And this hardy board really holds up.
True, yes. In terms of longevity, it would, as long as it's maintained, it does have a warranty. Most have a warranty from 20 to 30 years, and they can live far beyond that with the proper care. Wood can as well, but there is a more intense labor cost to that.
Do these two, the composite siding and the aluminum windows, contribute any better energy efficiency ratings or, well, I guess, environmental conditions?
Yeah, well, the clad windows, besides the aesthetic look of the wood on the inside and the resilience of the aluminum on the outside, they do
Mhm.
have there is the window product comes weather tight. It comes with the sashes and then the frames around the jambs around it. That's a pretty weather tight solution for
Mhm.
installing the new window like that with the technology that they use today. In terms
Sorry, Daniel, versus, I think we're talking about keeping the same windows and replacing, just using that wood
so
to.
if you were to keep those windows and restore them, you would still, to keep weather tightness, you would have to keep the storm sashes. You could put new ones on the inside to keep a more historical look on the outside, but there would be that storm sash glass window that's doing most of the work because of the existing window is years old. It's expanded and contracted, and
Mhm.
it's warped, and it's not generally not going to be plumb anymore. And that's what is creating the thermal breaks and the drafts that are experienced.
So those wouldn't necessarily go away if we opted to keep not to replace the existing windows.
If you want to replace existing windows, there would be a weather tightening component, a weather tightness component that would most likely be a storm sash, a storm window on the outside or the inside.
Yeah, in other window restorations that we've done where the windows were kept, it has been removing of the sashes, taking them to a shop, kind of fixing them with epoxy fillers and replacing all, taking out the glazing, replacing the glazing compounds. It is a huge task. Not to say that it's not possible, and there's obviously a historic benefit to keeping the windows, but we're recommending that the windows be replaced because it's going to take so much work to get these things to the same level of tightness. Right now they're rattly. There's like, even around the frames, there's gaps, and Daniel said there's kind of like wind whistling through some places. I'm sure Jennifer can attest to that. So it would take a lot of work, and so I think that we can, with enough research, we can find windows to be very similar to what's there now, but give you a much better energy solution for the building.
So
And
in
what
the
what
interest
are
of
other
time, we have a very full agenda ahead of us. And I'm thinking, without actually seeing these different materials yet, I don't think we can come to a consensus this evening. So I'm wondering what our deadline is to get an opinion over to you folks, so we have time to go visit Jennifer and the materials at Town Hall.
We have a general schedule to kind of report back to the town, in mid-February, early March.
That's the final.
That's the final one, but to get a general direction, we would like to probably have that done before
2 weeks.
Yeah, in 2 weeks' time, definitely. That's that 2 weeks would be
Perfect. Yes.
perfect and long enough, I think.
Okay.
Hopefully.
And if you need additional materials, I'm sure we could get a window sample for you to look at, but it will take a little bit to come in.
Okay. commission members, how do we feel about that plan of seeing the materials at with Jennifer in our own time in the next week or so, and then sending an opinion to Daniel and Kevin? Would we say, do you want it by December 3rd, or would December 6th be good enough? Or are you hoping for the day after Thanksgiving?
No, the 6th would be fine.
December 6th is fine.
Okay, great.
Probably my only possibility at this point.
Yeah, it's a busy time right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we understand that as well. It's for the holidays coming, there is a lot of gaps, but but if everybody agrees with December 6th, yeah, that'd be great for us.
Okay, wonderful. I'm sorry to cut you off. I
No.
just do have someone else we need to chat with and a long agenda. So thank you both so much. If you could email me this presentation and I can share it with everyone else, that would be ideal. I think it helps everybody to be able to read through it.
Certainly, I'll put this in a PDF and send it out to you to distribute.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, and nice meeting you all.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving and take care.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
All right, next is the preservation plan summary. I am happy to report that we got the CPA funding at town meeting on Thursday with, fascinatingly enough, no comments from anyone in the town. There was lots of discussion on everything that came before, so I was happily surprised. So I think Brianna has been in conversation with Chris about booking a time in March for us to get together. Dragon has confirmed that we can book the senior center van at no charge, and it comes with a driver. So that's really great news. And just to keep Chris up to date, we did download all the listings out of the Macris database for Hadley, and looking at everything before 1960 as our starting point, and we divided that up into sections around town, and we are all researching what's still there, what's been demolished but hasn't been updated in Macris, and all that kind of good stuff. So I think at this point we need to determine the date in March and what our homework from Chris is to prepare. So I think we had thrown out the first 2 Saturdays in March, potentially the 3rd Saturday in March, but I'm not sure if Brianna was available.
I'm leaving the Sunday afterwards. I'm just looking at the calendar now. So I leave the 16th. So technically I could do all 3. I think the first 2 would be easier, the 1st or the 8th of March for me.
The first 3 are my only possibilities because I'm going away after that.
Okay.
I'm free.
I'm free.
All 3 are good for me.
Okay, I don't have anything scheduled for those Saturdays in March either.
All right, do we want to say March 8th with a potential snow date with the 15th, if that is something that happens? I'm just thinking of light. I think March 8th will have a good amount of light, but then of course the 15th is after we change to daylight savings time, so we'll have the most light. But I understand it's tricky to have a full day planned before you go on vacation, so I want to be conscious of everyone's schedules.
Yeah,
So-
that sounds good. I
Okay.
think that works.
Great. Let's put that in the calendars then.
How many people will the van hold?
I'm not sure.
I didn't ask specifically, but it is a like large, probably at least 15-person van.
15 people, okay.
And it's like a miniature bus, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like a mini school bus.
Okay. I was over at the, and so there's plenty of room for all of us And are there any outside people that won? Okay.
Andy, right, Diana?
And,
Yes.
oh, okay. Andy from the Historical Society?
CPA, he might be on Historical Society too. Andy
Oh, yeah.
Morris Friedman, when we went to CPA to present on this, he expressed
Got it.
interest in joining
Oh, okay.
us.
Is it Alan then from the Historical Society?
Yes, Alan is the
He
president.
expressed an interest, so just
Okay, I
if
can
there's
email
room
him
to
too.
extend him an invite, he would like that.
Dragon, would you be able to book the van for us?
Yeah, certainly now that we have a date, do we have estimated kind of guesstimated times where I could reach out to them to let them know?
Chris?
Oh, so this is a tour. This is for the tour around town, so we can all I can get a good sense of the kinds of issues that you're facing and the kinds of resources that are in Hadley. Even though I know Hadley fairly well, but be good to tour around with you anyway. Yeah, I think it's just like a couple of hours for the tour around.
Do we want to meet at the senior center at 9?
Yeah, that sounds.
Okay.
9, 10.
And how do we like book a meeting space in the senior center? Is that an option? Does anyone know?
It usually is off hours. We would just need someone who would have entry to the building, but I'm sure we can finagle that with other people that we know that might have access to the building or keys to the open space. When you say a couple hours, Chris, do you mean like until noon time, like 2 or 3 hours? Kind of, I know we were kind of ballpark. These are my own words, right? Like total dragon ad lib, like which could be who knows what that is. But do you think like 2 hours to kind of get the sense, or longer than that? Would we need a lunch break? Kind of, what are you thinking? Just large ballpark.
Yeah. So the last one I did for a town in Eastern Mass last month. Let's see, we started off our day at Town Hall and we kind of looked through some of the old records for the Historical Commission, what they had for an archive in Town Hall. Then we went over to the library because there are copies of their survey forms. The hard copies of the survey forms were actually housed at the library, so we spent some time looking through those. And then we went for a tour. I don't even think it was 2 hours for driving around. But I probably would have liked it to have gone a little bit slower so I could have gotten out and taken photos and gotten a little. So I would say, yeah, it was probably an hour and a half, but I would probably like it to go a little bit longer so we can get out and walk around and I can take photos too. Then we went back and had a meeting in Town Hall, and that was at least 2 hours, I would say. In that case, I was just meeting with the Historical Commission. And I went through each of the sections of what I would like to see in a preservation planning summary. So we talked about where your survey is at, what you're dealing with, what your needs are for survey. We talked about National Register, where National Register districts are right now, and where possible National Register districts could be. We talked about the ordinances that the bylaws that they have there. So that town had demolition delay, was pretty much all they had. So it's kind of similar to Hadley, I think. Because you have demolition delay in Hadley, right?
No, we do
demolition
not.
delay. Okay. All right. So, okay. All right. So we talk about bylaws, if there are any, and if there aren't, then we talk about what bylaws might be useful, how those work. There's usually lots of questions that come up there. That community did not have CPA. So they actually had lots of questions about CPA. So we actually spent quite a bit of time talking about CPA, and they were kind of shocked to hear what they were missing out on by not having CPA. And then we talk about you as well, just how you as a commission, how do you function, and are there concerns that come up in terms of you feeling productive and how your meetings are run, just kind of being efficient and quality meeting time. And some of the other topics that we had, going back to where we were just at, municipal stewardship of property. So that could be buildings, that could be burial grounds, could be parks, commons, things like that as well. So those are the kinds of things that I go over section by section with questions. Some of the sections were a lot quicker. Some of them we spent 25 minutes on one section. For that preservation planning summary, I didn't have any, it didn't go further in terms of having other outside groups that wanted to give input. But if we wanted to have this, I mean, it would be better if we had this a little bit more open and had other planning board, other kinds of boards and commissions that would be willing to speak up and express their thoughts on historic preservation in the town of Hadley. The select board was there, that would be great. But it's an open meeting as well, so residents might want to have some thought, give some thoughts as well.
I think we had planned in terms of the tour, we were thinking it was going to be like quite long because Hadley's, it's a large town and we have a lot of historical resources. And so we weren't sure how long it was going to be, but we're open to whatever you think is good. Like we planned for an entire day. So we were more than happy to do a longer tour than that other town and then still make time for the meeting afterwards.
Okay. So you think we need more than 2 hours for the tour?
We just didn't know like what that encompassed and what we would want to go over. And you bringing up looking at the like historical documents at the town hall and things like that. Those are ideas that we had not come up with. So that might be something to consider as well in terms of, where we store things and everything. Cause I know it's a little bit all over the map in terms of where the documentation is. But we had planned on having kind of like a morning tour, I think maybe, and then doing a lunch break and then doing the meeting afterwards.
Okay.
In the conversations that we had. So it's kind of still up in the air, but this is all good information for us to know to be able to move forward in planning.
Okay. Well, why don't we give it the 3 hours then for the tour around town? And then that'll be a good stopping point for lunch, and then we'll have the meeting after that.
It probably takes a good 20 minutes to go from the southern border of Hadley to the northern border of Hadley. It's a long, skinny town.
Yeah. Yep.
This is a great starting point to kind of give me a frame to reach out to the senior center to just give us a ballpark idea so they could start planning. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. So, Chris, do you have any homework for us?
Sure. I mean, March is a little ways off, so I think you have plenty of time to think about things. But I could I could actually send you some lists of questions to think about ahead of time. That's definitely helpful. Because I found that last one I did for the meeting, it was 2 hours, but I didn't feel like they were kind of done. I mean, after 2 hours after 2 hours of meeting, everyone's kind of usually ready to move on. But yeah, I would have liked to keep the discussion going more. So maybe if I do some questions ahead of time, that would work well. And we might even want to do that individually, so you don't have any issues with the open meeting. If somehow that can go out to each of you individually, it gets back to me individually, and then you don't have an open meeting issue if it comes together, if it goes out that way.
Yep, we can do that. So like I mentioned, I split up Hadley into 7 different regions for us to look at ahead of time and identify resources that we think are important. So is that a good way to get started as well?
Yeah, so you said you took what you have for survey forms right now, and you're organizing that. Is there anything there that gives a sense of how old the form is? Because that's actually really helpful to know. That like the town that I was just working in, almost all of their forms were from say the early 70s or even the 60s.
So I just pulled everything out of the Macris database.
Yep.
So it's kind of all over the place. But just based on the photos they have, I would say, yeah, 1960s, 1970s is when a lot of it was compiled.
Okay. And have you had any survey done since then? I feel like there was some barn survey or something that was done a decade ago or something.
Um,
No?
Not that I'm familiar with, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's just that is prior to any of us being on the commission and being super familiar with what was going on at that time.
There is a report from, was it 2012? Another, a study that was done, wasn't there?
It might have been in 2009 with the
that-
350th, because there was a booklet put out that had pictures of a lot of the barns in town in it, and so I'm thinking that it might have been then.
Okay. So maybe it wasn't actually survey forms that were put together for the barns. There was more of some sort of a research study or a publication that was put together. Okay. All right. Okay.
Also, just another comment, we when we put all of this to the town vote, we asked for $2,000 for incidentals, so we could just cover kind of everything. So that's our budget for all of this, so just so you're aware.
It's about $2,000. Okay, that's great.
Mhm.
That's good to know. Okay, great.
Okay, anything else that we need to ask Chris or anything else on preservation plan summary?
I do have a question about, and I don't know if I heard you guys talking about it before, but there's the address numbers, the street numbers that come from Macris.
Yeah.
were at some point changed, and there's some list, and I've got a partial one that I got from Alan at the Historical Society that has the old and the new numbers.
Mhm.
Is there a complete list for the properties that we're looking at?
Not that I have. Basically what happened is when they put in 911 in the 90s, any street that jumped Route 9 restarted at 100 on the south end. So you have to do a little bit of detective work to determine what the last street is on the north end and then do some math to see how things jumped over.
Okay, so are we just talking about Maple, Meadow, Middle, West? We're not talking about East or,
So it would be West Street, Middle Street, and East Street that this would impact.
oh, okay. All right, well, maybe. Okay.
And some numbers might be off that just aren't accurate. When I did reach out to the Massachusetts Historical Commission about how to update Macris, I was sent a very complicated form that we would need to fill out. It's not as straightforward as one would hope.
Okay. So it's really the north side of Route 9 is where we'll see the differences.
The south side, is that what you said?
Oh, I mean, the south side, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on Bay Road and they changed our numbers, so there might have been some, I mean, like just sort of fudging here and there where there were, lots in between that didn't have houses. So I think not just those 3 streets were affected.
That happened in a lot of areas. If there were those empty lots were given a number, so
Yeah.
the house numbers of some people were moved up because of that. So it's going to be not easy sometimes to be able to distinguish.
So what should we do?
Your best.
Yes, you can try. If it looks like a new house between 2 old houses and you're looking for an old house, here's your clue.
Okay.
I do have a Spirian and being studious because Ms. Parsons is on the meeting. Diana, when is our homework due for the assignment?
Well, I would say by the time we meet in March.
Yeah, I thought of something else that would be good to think about that might take a little bit of time and a little bit of research. Whatever you could put together in terms of the history of the Historical Commission, the history of historic preservation in town. Have you tried to go to town meeting with demo delay. I think there was an effort to do a local historic district decades ago in Hadley. When was the Historical Society created? When was the Historical Commission formed? If you know that, usually around the bicentennial was when lots of them were formed. But that's good, helpful things to know in terms of just the timeline of historic preservation in the town.
I'm also wondering about all the historical commission documents from prior historical commissions, because correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like I've heard that they got moved out of town hall and now they're kind of just in people's houses, or maybe some are in the Goodwin building. I'm not sure where they are, but maybe that's something we should try to piece together before the meeting if we need those things.
When I asked about them, I was told first that they had moved to Goodwin, then that they hadn't moved, and that mainly they were copies of the Macris listings. But the town is supposed to have, I guess, all old minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what about all the minutes and any sort of record of surveys or anything like that were done? Like, where would those exist? Or we can talk about this later, but maybe it's something we should try to find if possible.
I would agree. I mean, the record keeping is not ideal.
Yeah, so for one of the towns I've done this before, that just came out as one of the recommendations. We did some looking around. We found out that the previous records were kind of all over the place, and into the preservation planning summary that goes in as one of the recommendations that there needs to be some better document storage, archival issues. Yeah.
If I can make a suggestion, I think we've got a fair amount of time to do these surveys. And if we give ourselves an earlier deadline to see where we all are collectively, we'll have time to go back and sharpen it up before the March meeting.
Do we want to make that our February meeting deadline?
Well, that's the end of February, so maybe the end of January. Is there a January meeting?
Yeah, we have, is it January 19th? No, 28th?
Did we set the January meeting?
Was it? Yeah, I think it was the 28th. Was that on my wrong?
That's what I have too.
Okay.
28th might be a good check-in point. Gives us some time after the holidays.
All right. So deadline is January 28th then.
And then Chris, just to clarify, after the tour and after the meeting and after all the discussion, the next step is that you will write up the preservation plan summary and the recommendations and kind of get it back to us. And then I think what the money that we had asked for incidentals or whatever was in case we wanted to have another meeting, like another follow-up afterwards, or discussion about any of the recommendations and where we should go from there. Because we assumed that we may need another meeting with you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, with 2,000 in the budget, we can definitely do another meeting. That sounds fine. And that way you could react to whatever I put out as a draft. We can have a good discussion on the draft and then see what you'd like to what you'd like to see added into the report or changed or whatever.
Great.
All
So it
right.
sounds like my task is to get you some questions to answer. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris. And thank you for your patience through the first presentation of this evening. We
Sure.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know actually a side note, the whole time they were doing that presentation, I was like, I wonder what Chris thinks about this. Like, I wanted to know your opinion so badly. on
I
everything
had a lot going through my head.
I'm sure
yeah.
you did. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
sure he's thinking about all of this.
Yeah. I mean, well, my first question was, well, I know you get a full agenda here. Stop me if you want me to, if you want to get onto the rest of your
No,
agenda.
spill.
But yeah, I was certainly curious, why was it coming to the Hadley Historical Commission to begin with? Why are they presenting to you?
Yeah, we
They
have no
run
say.
everything. They run everything by us, even though we technically have no real power.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I think the same thing every time. I'm like, why do you, I mean, they want our opinion, but it doesn't really mean anything.
Who's
at
looking
the
for
end of
your
the day.
opinion, the select board or who is it?
So they got CPA money to do
Was-
a plan for both the town hall and the Goodwin building. And so they need, I mean, as you saw, the town hall is not in great shape. It does date to 1841. It is one of the few town halls in the Commonwealth still being used as a town hall as the original building. So it's a courtesy to us because it's historic. It is in a National Historic District. It's part of the look of our historic center of town. And we did support the CPA funding for these projects. So, I mean, ultimately it is a courtesy, but I appreciate it. It's nice to hear that they do value our opinion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Do you feel that project met the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation?
I'll be honest, I'm not deeply familiar with those.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you?
No, I didn't. No, it did not meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. Yeah.
For rehabilitation,
And that's a requirement for CPA.
Okay, good to know.
I mean,
They
it doesn't
so
necessarily mean every CPA project in the Commonwealth meets the Secretary of the Interior standards because there isn't necessarily a whole lot of oversight on that. But it's in the law that historic preservation projects funded with CPA need to meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. And
so for clarification, the CPA funding as of right now is just to fund the study.
Yeah.
okay,
It's
yep,
not to fund the actual work on the buildings.
yep. Okay.
what are the standards though, or is that something that's not easily answered?
If there's info online we can pull up.
Yeah.
That's really helpful to know though, Chris, just
Yeah.
Thank you.
FYI, it's a really good information for us.
Sounds
I
like
feel like there are these like major things. I don't know. During the whole presentation, I just kept thinking was like, I just want to know. I just want to know what Chris thinks. If he could just give us like a detail. I don't know. If we had the money, we would just hire you for everything. I think.
Well, I mean, I'm not a preservation architect, so I don't do historic structures report. But that's what was going through my head is why wasn't there a historic structures report done on this building before they got to this stage?
But Dietz and Company is not a historic preservation architect either, are they?
It sure didn't sound like it. Yeah.
I didn't think they were.
I'm writing this down because
Yeah,
that's a helpful question.
Which does tell us what they were thinking when they hired Dietz and Company to do the study. They weren't thinking historic preservation.
No.
Doesn't seem like that's really a through line in Hadley when it comes to doing things.
And
But
at
that's-
some point, it's just being pragmatic of making it energy efficient and
But that's why we're
modernize
going
the building and make it functional for, the 2025 and ahead, going forward versus the historical integrity.
Yeah, it's just challenging though when like that's the basis of CPA funds, right? Is like the 3 niches that you have to fall into, and that however the town came to coming to this organization to do this study, really having the basis of the core of the study to be meaningful, really I'm concerned now that is it really even a feasible study to meet the needs of what the goal was? But that's just me maybe I'm being a naysayer.
No,
but
I think you're totally right. And I think, it's just coming back full circle to like why we hired Chris in the first place and why we're trying to move forward with making historic preservation in Hadley a more important pillar of what's happening in the town. So hopefully this preservation plan summary kind of moves us in that direction. There were so many other things we've been discussing as a commission that we can move forward with, and hopefully our meeting with Chris will move those things forward as well.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we definitely are too. Thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate it.
Great. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a
Nice
great
to see
night.
you.
We'll
Thank
see you in March. Enjoy the holidays.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, I just need a
Oh.
quick 2-minute break if that's okay. BRB.
Go right ahead.
I'll take one as well.
So Brianna, how are you feeling? You were
Oh
moved
my
down.
gosh.
What was going on?
Oh, it's been just awful.
Did you have a flu or something?
We've just been sick since like before Halloween. I had bronchitis, a sinus infection, and 2 ear infections in the last 2.5 weeks. So I'm finally feeling better now. My kids are finally feeling better, but it's just like flu season with toddlers, just back to back to back illness. I'm sure Courtney is in a similar situation. It's rough.
I mean,
And
fingers
actually-
crossed, we've been okay.
You guys have been okay? Oh my gosh,
We've been okay.
we have not. We have not. So
Sorry.
The Huckowitz kids have both been sick a lot as well. They're 6 and 4, I think.
yeah, I think having like the younger set, because mine are pretty young. What about you, Dragon? Have your kids been sick?
Oh, golly. I mean, it's the never-ending cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was so bummed. I really wanted to make town meeting, and I wanted to make that the other forum as well. And we have been like, I thought last year was bad. This was one of the worst illnesses I've had in like, I don't even know, a decade. It was so bad. I'm fine. Like, it's been 2.5 weeks and I'm finally feeling better. So anyway, I was happy to be able to make this meeting, frankly.
Imagine what it was like before we had vaccinations.
Oh my gosh. Or I think that all
I
the
remember.
time.
I remember. Got chicken pox for 2 weeks, went back to school and came home with German measles.
Or like antibiotics, because we've had those in there too. Like I've never been on so many meds in my entire life as I have in the last 2.5 weeks. It's been so bad. But thankfully for those meds, we're all good. We're all good. My gosh, I'm just hoping to make it through Thanksgiving unscathed.
Check on that puppy again.
You have a puppy?
My daughter's puppy is
Oh.
I'm babysitting it.
Cute.
But it was so cute when it was in your lap, Sherry.
Oh, I missed
But-
that.
Oh, maybe I'll get her back. But yeah, it's my daughter's, and she's mostly sits by the back door waiting for my daughter to come back to pick her up. But I can hear her in the other room now, so I'm going to check.
So cute.
All right, I don't want to beleaguer the points here, but it sounds to me like I need to confirm with Jennifer that CPA funding is being used for this work that Dietz is doing, and that we need to ask these questions that Chris put to us.
Gosh,
about-
Chris is just so helpful. Like, I really was serious. I wish we could just have him just at every meeting.
Just our representative, basically.
Yeah, just like, hey, Chris, what do you think about any of these things? He's just so knowledgeable. I mean, he worked for the State Historical Commission for what, like 30 years or something, 25 years. He like knows all. Oh, look at the puppy.
Oh, is that a border collie? You can't have
So cute.
cute.
All right,
Oh, look, border collie.
moving on. 47 East Street Water Tower Antenna Project. So they want to replace the existing antennas on the water tower. The water tower does date back to about 1920, which is circa when the building was built. Does anyone have any comments on this project?
No.
I think I was unclear on what they were talking about actually doing. they were putting a cell tower on the top. Is that what they were talking about?
Yeah, so I think they are adding antennas. Well, excuse me, they are replacing antennas that are already there. And they will be painted to match the water tower. And this is a revenue stream for the man who owns the building and the water tower, but it's also advantageous for the community to have better cell service.
Who's the cell service? Verizon?
I think it's AT&T. Well, if no one has any problems, then I will let them know that we have no concerns with the project.
No, I think there's already lots of towers on that tower and they're not unsightly for me. So if they kind of go with that, I'm fine.
The tower itself is rather unsightly, so don't have much to lose there.
But they're gonna paint it.
That is a plus. All right, old business. I guess I can remove the signs from this part because we did those.
All right.
Do we have any updates on the walking tour or driving tour?
So walking tour, I think Brianna wanted to look at, but I know she's been busy with being ill for several weeks. So I think once that's done, then we should be good to go.
Great.
Unless Brianna, you just don't want to do it, and then we can send it off.
I'm like, no, I really would like to go over it one more time. Courtney and I were talking about that last week, and she was saying that it's basically all done. You know, it's been edited by multiple people, and she and I are basically doing last looks before it goes to print. And then
to hit print.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the driving tour, I have not been able to do anything because my voice has sounded absolutely terrible for the last couple of weeks. So I had to reschedule a time with Alex. And then I'm also talking to him about ways to do this at home, because I think it's just not really feasible to get into the Goodwin building to do like 30 hours worth of recording. So we're trying to figure out, or I'm trying to work with him to figure out if there's a way that, I don't know, I can figure out how to do recording at my house so that I can do it on my own time, because I think it's just not going to work otherwise. So that's kind of up in the air, but I'm just going to do the demo and see how that goes, and then kind of like go from there. So I can do the demo at the Goodwin building as soon as I sound normal, and you know, we can find a time because it's also really busy right now. And then, yeah, I don't know. I asked him a lot of questions about kind of like equipment and what would be needed to make this happen at home. And I'm waiting to hear back from him on that. So hopefully more soon on the driving tour.
All right, thank you. House plaques.
Plaques. All right. I have been reaching out. I've reached out to 6 potential providers, and I've gotten one from a company called Hale Design up in somewhere around Greenfield, and Alan from the Historical Society gave me their information because those are the people that did the sign for the Historical Society. And they got back and they quoted $244 a sign, and that would be for a composite material, and it would have been for 100 individually printed signs. So I was surprised to see that. So I think that's too high. I've looked around. There's a company in Northampton, and I've looked at Sun Rays signs in Hadley. If anybody else has any suggestions, I'm not from here, so I don't have a lot of contacts. If you have any thoughts of other sign companies that might be able to do this, I'd appreciate it. I also did some research on Etsy to get some other ideas, and I reached out to a few of the vendors up there, and they've all gotten back, and I've asked for samples, just to see what these composites look like or feel like. Since we're an historical commission and we're putting these historical plaques on homes, there's a question of why wouldn't you go for wood? And, the answer very similar to why they're recommending a composite on the side of the town hall. So that's where I am right now. I've started documenting this information, and it's on a spreadsheet that I put up into the Google Drive. Just keeping that house plaque spreadsheet going as these things progress. I did find it interesting. I went to the Historical Society, and Alan gave me, it looks like this project started after the bicentennial, as sort of something that came out of the bicentennial in 1976, and that the house plaques that we have today were really kind of going back to the late 70s and early 80s. There's a newsletter from 1982 saying they still had some plaques left, and then there's another in 1994 newsletter saying they still have plaques left. If anybody wants some, and they were $15. I have one of them here. It is wood, but it's a very low quality, kind of hand painted and not very well done. So I think we're looking to up the craftsmanship on these, or at least the design. But this was interesting. There was a historical commission survey that was done in 78, asking, it went out to the town and asked people if they were interested. And Diana, your mother is on the letterhead here. I think. Mabel West. Are you
Grandmother.
related to Mabel? Your
She's my
grandmother.
grandmother.
All right. So this was just a very quick survey back in 78, asking people if they were available at a nominal rate, would you be interested? When was your house built? If they knew who was the original owner. Some just very basic questions, and it was a printed sheet that you trifold and you mail it back. That was the technology back then. But I think this will probably get to, at some point, a survey or a mailer asking people for their input or their level of interest once we have some more information on how much it's going to cost. And we can think about ways of reaching out to people and getting that information. I don't know, is there a time frame for this? I'm assuming it's probably, to coincide with the 250th anniversary. So, that would be around, before or around July of 26. Are we in sync there?
That seems like a feasible timeline, especially with everything else we've got going on.
Okay.
Also just a nice something to coincide with.
Okay. Some of the things that the pricing I've been seeing so far, it's anywhere from I'd say $75 up to $150.
Yeah,
And
the original pricing you quoted was like really shocking.
244, I was pretty shocked.
Yeah, that's seems really unreasonable.
When
So
when I did a quick Google, it looked like Concord had that around that sign price.
Really, Concord Mess.
Hey.
And where did you find? Where did they get those printed? Do you know?
I have no idea. I did like a 2-second Google search during this presentation.
Okay, so they still have the house plaques available that people can buy?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry for the yelling. I thought I was muted.
I think Hale, I talked to him when the select board wanted me to get different quotes for our signs. And I think he's sort of a one guy shop.
Okay.
So I think that's part of the price situation, is that he would be making them all himself. So that would up the costs.
Okay. Well, once we get sort of this sort of functional, requirements nailed and, kind of more information there, then we have, okay, what's the design of the plaque going to be? What information do we want to say? Some towns have the, Belmont Historical Commission as part of it. It's written into the sign. So we should be thinking about that, and just thinking about just the general design of, fonts and size and all those things that I am not good at. So we're going to need somebody who has some design capability who can help us put a couple of these together and see what the different permutations might look like.
There's
And I
also,
don't think it has to cost a lot of money.
Irene, I'm putting in the chat and the other sign company that I also talked to. It's Godfrey Sign out of Cummington.
Oh, great. Okay.
All right, so our standing agenda items.
I
oh,
don't see it.
Oh, did I send it to someone specifically by accident? I might have sent it just to Brianna once. I did. Did it come up this time?
Thank you. God.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, Mary, any movement on use of the common?
I'm kind of drawing a blank at the moment. I thought I sent you something, but I will confirm whether I did do that. Perhaps I didn't hit send.
All right, I don't remember seeing anything, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything else either. It could have gotten lost in the depths of my inbox. Okay, 101 East Street. Cyrus did upload a bunch of pictures to the Google Drive as I requested of him. When I was in that area last, the house was still there, but the windows had been removed and boarded up, I believe. So, has it been demolished or is it still sitting there? Okay. All right.
I kind of want those light fixtures that's on it. What's he doing with those?
Probably nothing. I have no idea.
Yeah, they're kind of cool.
They're really pretty.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the renovation done a couple years ago.
Yeah, those are pretty recent. But they've got a vintagey look. That's nice.
Yes. Okay, any information about the fountain on the common? Okay, Railroad Street. All right, I do kind of have an update about the 250th anniversary, which goes by the fun name Semi-Quincentennial. Rolls right off the tongue. I went to the New England Museum Association conference 2 weeks ago, and I went to a session about semi-quincentennial events around the Commonwealth. And looks like things are moving ahead, which is great. From a Hadley perspective, I did just search in our driving tour to see if we had anything, and it came up with a small anecdote about an Indigenous man who served in the Continental Army. And that piqued my interest considerably. If we can find more research on that or find out where we originally got that info from. I'm feeling like the commission has a lot going on and they might not necessarily be able to take on something new in terms of planning 250th events. But I'm wondering if you guys think it would be appropriate for me to reach out to the Historical Society and see if they would be interested in starting a task force just for the 250th. Looking back at the bicentennial, they had a committee, they did a lot of stuff. We are a little bit late to the game. But I think if we get some people interested who have good momentum, then we could at least get one or two things on the calendar.
Do we know when exactly the celebrations are supposed to take place? Like, does the town have a date for what they're doing?
So, different towns are doing different things. So out east, Lexington and Concord are looking at coming right up here in April 2025, because that's when things started to kick off there. I mean, July 4th, 2026 is the 250th of the original signature on the Declaration of Independence. So that's like kind of momentum around that point.
Right.
But it
Is-
kind of sounds like people are planning things starting this April all through 2025 and 2026.
Okay.
Like-
Has anybody heard anything about Hadley specifically doing anything yet?
Actually, Massachusetts has a 250th committee, and you can submit your event, your revolutionary event to that, and they've already started having these events. There's one scheduled for December 5th of this year.
Where?
Is that the one in Acton? I was going to go to that.
Yes, that's the one in Acton. Yeah.
December,
So-
what day is that, Sharon?
Yep,
That-
December 7 to 8:30 p.m. in Acton.
Is that a Tuesday?
The Thursday.
December 5th is a Thursday, okay.
So Hadley doesn't have anything that we know of on the calendar yet.
So
hit-
I know that Porter Phelps and the Historical Society applied for a grant to do some programming. I can pull up the letter I wrote. It was still in the very early stages of being planned. So they have some ideas, but Hadley as a whole, I don't think has anything.
Okay, I'm going to assume like the DAR is probably doing something. Sherry, do you know?
There's been some discussion around what we're going to be doing, but there are some tentative events being planned for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
and are they looking more at 2026 or 2020? 2026? Because I think it's feasible for, if we got a task force going now, to have something for 2026. 2025 does seem really soon for that, but I'm definitely in favor of reaching out to the Historical Society and seeing if there are people who would want to volunteer to put something together. I mean, I think that'd be nice.
But some of the things that they have on this list of things are not necessarily that tied to the revolution.
Like what?
There's one called Old Taverns and 18th Century Andover Headquarters for Sleeping, Politicking, and Entertainment. So people are just using what they're already doing for different kinds of programs and just sending them in as an event for the Massachusetts 250th celebration.
Oh.
So that's something that Historical Society could do already with the events that they've been having.
I'll reach out to Alan, get his feedback.
I chatted with him briefly at the sign unveiling, and he was just trying to get past the Montgomery Rose thing, but he was thinking, something about the veterans. But that's sort of his focus these days anyway. So
There was a black man from Hadley that was a veteran of the Revolutionary War. A slave.
Was that the Tillis family or someone different from?
If it wasn't Tillis. I can't remember the name right now, and I gave that book to the DAR to make copies of it so that they can have it digitized.
So I mean, yeah, I think it's worth mentioning to the Historical Society, and then seeing if they have anything already planned, and then maybe it's possible that we could just kind of tag along with something that they're already doing. That might be an easy thing to do, and if not, then I'm in favor of a task force.
Yep.
Great.
And Sherry, the Daughters of the Revolution, American Revolutioners, that's not Hadley specific, is that the whole area or?
Hadley's DAR folded a while ago. East Hampton's, I think, has folded. The only one really left in the area is Betty Allen in Northampton.
Northampton, okay.
A lot of them folded. But a task force would be good, especially if you can draw in other people, history teachers from the school, the Historical Society. I mean, we could lead it, but to try and get members on it would be
people who have more time. What we're currently doing.
So you mean like reach out to Deerfield and Northampton and just the surrounding towns and see what they're doing, or?
No, I was thinking like reaching out like by the Facebook groups and any other networking things people have to just see if there's interest from townspeople in doing something. I mean, like, we always have the fabulous Memorial Day parade, but is there also interest in us doing a one-off by semi-quincentennial 250th parade?
Or
I can
like
ask Denise what in planning a parade involves. I've never done it. But I think there's usually really good support for the Memorial Day parade. And when we did the 350th for Hadley parade, that was humongous.
what if, I mean, is like something on the common an option too? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, that's pretty, these are pretty large scale things. So I think, we'd need quite a few people for something like that. But I think it'd be nice to do something if there are people who want to volunteer their time
Oh, that
to
would be
do
really
that.
fun. Mary, do you have any information on who organizes the Memorial Day picnic on the Common? Who's behind that and the process they go through?
I think my sister knows who's doing that. I've never gone to it, but it's it's pretty loosey-goosey, I think, but they have, added each year, they've gotten a little more formal.
So Irene, do you mean the parade or do you mean the follow-up thing I thought was at the Legion?
Well,
a
there's
thing-
something on the Common. A lot of people hang out on the Common all day, and it's after the parade.
Really,
The parade ends here on the Common, and then there's lots of cookouts and people,
Yep.
pitching tents and hanging out, and
yeah,
and somebody's grilling, and I always wondered who's behind that.
It started informally with, I want to say the Swaz and family and the Road. Excuse me, the Road.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I swallowed some popcorn wrong. Sorry.
You all right?
Let me get water.
Yeah,
I'll come do
think
the
it-
Heimlich, Sherry. I'll be right there.
I was gonna say, she sounds like I've sounded for the last couple of weeks.
I never understood that to be a formal gathering. So the parade used to end at Old Hadley Cemetery, and it was a traffic and logistics nightmare when it did. So when I was in high school, they changed it to end on the Common, and there wasn't any formal gathering there. People were invited to go back to the Legion to have a hot dog. I know Denise Barstow helps organize the parade. Dragon's mother, Jean Baxter, did that for years before she passed away. But in terms of the after event, I think that's still just a homegrown hang out if you want kind of deal.
That's my sense too, since I've moved here. So I think there have been 2 or 3 of them now, and it's looking less homegrown. It's looking like a pretty well organized event.
Yeah, they've got, Sandy Can and stuff now. So.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it looks fun, but I don't know if it's a town event. I think it's sort of,
I mean, we can
I don't know.
ask
It's
Town
not
Hall, who's pulling
formal. I think it's intentionally not formal because of insurance issues. And residents are allowed to use the Common, so they're just hanging out, but it's, secretly getting more formal, I think. They just don't want to have to follow any laws about it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
What does the Board of Health think about that?
Yeah.
I think it would be challenging for a board member to speak at this time, but I think there might be some concerning items with that, that maybe a concerned citizen could bring up as a point of discussion at one of our meetings.
All right. Moving on, since we are nearing 9 p.m. and I'm sure a lot of us are tired. Special town meeting, I did have to leave halfway through, but all the CPA articles passed. I read a Gazette article that said everything else passed. So, did anybody have any comments or concerns about the meeting? Anything that came up that you think Historical Commission needs to be aware of?
Well, there was one, and I don't know if it's really something that we need to be concerned about because it's the town, the old town dump, but there's a feasibility study or some kind of a study that they want to do to put a solar panel field out on the town dump, and it could become a revenue source for the town. And it's compelling. I think as we're going through this historic preservation plan, and that whole back meadows is part of the natural landscape. Is that going to create a conflict? I don't have an opinion. I just was thinking about it, wondering about it.
Yep.
Having a solar put there.
I do see your point.
And then there was something else about, was it the zoning planning board that is allowing, it had something to do with barns, detached barns, and now you can have a detached unit put on your property?
It was the dwellings, no, the accessory
Dwellings.
dwellings no longer having to be proximate.
And
So basically you can have a tiny house in your yard now that people live in.
okay.
And you can have an apartment in your house. Before there were laws about that, it had to be owner occupied. It could really just be an in-law suite, if you will, but now it is allowing actual apartments you could rent out.
That's not new. I mean,
It
that's
is new.
That's new.
So,
There's
so
a lot of
houses,
illegal ones, yes.
yeah, so houses in Hadley that previously had
Renting
apartments
people's homes all the time.
were grandfathered in when those laws were passed.
Oh, okay.
So historically, Hadley has worked against anything that they thought students would come live in town. Like I believe it's still on the books in Hadley that more than 4 unrelated adults are not supposed to occupy one house together. Obviously I can tell you right now, the house 2 houses down from my parents' house is 100% breaking that law. There's usually at least 8 to 10 cars in that driveway. But so this is a move sort of in the opposite direction into that it is allowing single family homes to add one apartment not to exceed 900 square feet, or an accessory dwelling unit, which essentially would be a tiny house, perhaps an RV, that again does not exceed 900 square feet, I believe.
And that can be rented out?
Yes, but not for short-term rentals. So it can't be Airbnb. It can just be a month-to-month lease.
Got it. Okay. All right. Those are my 2.
Okay. Any other thoughts about what happened at town meeting? All right, anything else that has come up since we posted the agenda last week on Wednesday?
No, I mean, just a quick update. I went to the presentation at the library with the author about the Revolutionary Women on Wednesday. It was very nice, very well done. I think there was good participation and presentation there, and it was just kind of nice to see people enthusiastic about Hadley history.
I was there.
I was in the front doing my needlepoint on the front left.
Oh, okay.
Was that with Marla Miller or was that with somebody else? Very nice.
She's with Porter Phelps.
She might be on their board, but she is a professor of history at UMass, amongst other things.
Yeah, she's great. Yep.
Yeah, she
She's
does a
on the
lot
board
with Porter Phelps.
Deerfield, I think, too.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Okay.
All right, so we have January 28th as our meeting in January. We had originally decided to skip December. Are we still okay with that plan?
Unless something emergency comes up, yeah.
Okay, great. then we
Like,
have no
wouldn't
other.
it would be Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, right?
Well, I think we could move it
Move
up
it up.
earlier than that if needed. But I think we're good until January. If something does come up, please send me an email and we can try to get something together. When I get the stuff from Chris, or perhaps he might send it to Brianna, then I will distribute it BCC'd on an email. So we are not breaking open meeting law. And other than that, I think we've come to the end of our time together. So thank you all so much.
Welcome.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
All right, I heard many people say that, so I think I've got a yes and a second.
Yeah.
So everybody have a great night. Have a great Thanksgiving.